Welcome to Cybernet Security. Today we'll be talking about understanding OSI model. What is OSI model? OSI model is Open System Interconnection Model. So it's a way whereby systems and computers communicate with one another over the network. For example, in the previous years, around 1950s, there is difficulties that computers have in communicating with one another. So that was what brought up to this OSI model, which is a theoretical form of explaining how these computers work, communicate with one another over the internet. So, but we have the OSI model and they equally have the TCP/IP model. What are these two models? These two models are still actually saying the same thing, but the OSI model is basically used for theoretical purposes to explain how these communications happen across different computers in your network. But whereas the TCP IP model is the model that is generally used across the industry today. It is a model that is more recognized in major other places. There was a time where these two models actually are kind of in a war, but eventually the TCP IP model won the war. But using why then your question would be, why am I talking about the OSI model? Yes, the OSI model kind of is a theoretical part of explaining is a theoretical way of explaining how this communication works. If you can be able to understand the OSI model, understanding the TCP/IP model is not far from you. For example, when you come to the OSI model, you have 7 layers in the OSI model. When it comes to the TCP/IP model, you have 4 layers in the TCP/IP. But in the OSI model, the layer 7, 6, and 5 combined together are what the TCP/IP model are referring are the application layer, and we have the transport layer, which actually does the same thing across the both layers. We have the network layer in the OSI model, but when it comes to the TCP/IP model, we call that network layer the internet layer. So when you come down to layers 2 and layer 1 in the OSI model, we have the data link and the physical layer. This data link and physical layer is kind of what still represented in the TCP/IP model as the network access layer. So that's why I'm saying, if you understand the OSI model, OSI model layer, OSI model is easy to understand the TCP/IP model. So in this video, we'll be talking more of the OSI model. So the OSI model, we have the application layer. What is this application layer? This application layer is not like your normal application that you use on your system. What I mean by a normal application, what applications I'm talking about is, I'm not talking about the games and your Firefox, your Chromes, your email servers. Yes, those applications are the human interact application that humans interact with. So, but this application layer protocols comprises of the protocols that enable those applications communicate over the network. For example, you want to send a mail from your email server. That mail that you are sending from your email server is utilizing the POP3 protocol. It is utilizing the SMTP protocol. It is utilizing the IMA protocol. So these are protocols that Outlook application that you have on your system utilizes to make sure that this application sends message over or sends email over the network. So equally, when it comes to the other part of the application, let me say for example the Firefox and the Chrome, you want to visit a web server like a facebook.com or youtube.com. So how do you do that? The Firefox or the Chrome itself is not the one sitting on the application layer. Rather, what sits on the application layer is those protocols that enable you to use those applications to communicate to a remote server somewhere. Which protocols am I talking about? If you are talking about, I'm talking about the HTTP and HTTPS protocols, which the HTTPS is for secure communication over the web browser. So here we have many other applications and many other protocols that work with this application that enable communication work in the application layer. So the presentation layer is the sixth layer of the OSI model. In this layer, the main function of this layer is to perform translation, data translation. It translates the information coming from the application layer to a form which the computer can understand. And after I've done this translation, it does what we know as the data compression. It does a compression. It compresses this information to this compression can exists in two types. We have the lossless and we have the lossful compression. Understand? Depending on the formats that there is, the presidential layer is using to do the compression. The standard is using to do the compression. So after it has done this compression, it does another thing we call the encryption. This is where the encryption and decryption is being done in the OSI model. So in this encryption, it uses different protocols to do this encryption. So one of the protocols that you use to do this encryption is the TLSL, the Transport Layer Security Protocol. So it is what it uses to encrypt data. For example, if you're using a web browser, it's what you use to encrypt data along, encrypt the information that you have been sending, the data that is moving across the web browser to the server. So we are moving to the session layer. Here we have the session layer. The session layer is the fifth layer of the OSI model. This layer is what is in charge of establishing these connections between one system, maybe a client system to a server system. So how does this, before any communication, before any data is passed across from one system to the other, they first of all have what we call session initiation. This layer, the fifth layer, which is the session layer, is what is in charge of that session initiation stage. It helps initiate the section between the client server and the remote server. And in the same time, this layer is what does authentication and authorization. This layer authenticates if you have the right to visit that server. For example, it first of all asks you the question of who you are. First of all, define who you are by maybe inputting your username and your password, telling the server, say, I am who I said I am. So the server first of all checks whether you have whether you are authenticated. After you have been authenticated, it performs another thing they call as the authorization. In this session does authorization. This session checks if you have the power to access those resources that you are trying to visit on those remote server. So this session layer is where the authentication and the authorization and setting up the session is being done. So which is the fifth layer of the OSI model. So the next layer we'll be moving on to is the transport layer. So the transport layer is in charge of transporting those informations from one system to the other. The protocols that exist in this layer is the TCP protocol, the UDP protocol, the RTP protocol, and the SCTP protocol. So what happens in this layer is where segmentation occurs. This layer is what handles flow control. It's the same layer is where error corrections are being made. Error control is being made. Because what I mean by error control, when a data is sent across a network, like a system sent across from one system to the other, and maybe in that data some packets are being dropped, this layer actually makes sure that those packets are being retransmitted. It looks at the checksum to see if some packets are being missing. So it equally has, in this unit, it breaks it down into segments. This segment has the different units. It has its the sequence number. It has the other information that kind of tells, it has a checksum, kind of tells it whether that packet, whether there's a missing packet, or the sequence number is the one that actually enables it to organize, as after it has transmitted the information from one system to the other, from the client to the server. It helps it check, arrange those information according to their sequence number when it comes to the receiving end, so that the system in the receiving end will be able to access that system and understand what information is being passed across. So the next layer here we have is the network layer, the IP layer. So this network layer is in charge of the networking. This is where IP protocols like logical addressing are being done. This is where IPs are being attached to those information, information that are being passed across the network. This is where the ICMP protocols like the echo. The ICMP protocol is what you use when you want to ping a system, when you are pinging from one system to the other to check for connectivity. The ICMP protocol is what does that for you. So we have the IPsec for VPNs, for tunnel, tunnel security, understand the IPsec. We have the app which does MAC addresses, tries to pick, it tries to map the IP addresses to their MAC addresses in the environment. So this layer comprises of these protocols which enables communication to be possible in the internet, in the network. So the next layer yes, now we have the data link layer. This is the second layer of the OSI model. And this layer is where MAC addressing is being handled. This is where MAC addresses are being added to the packet which are about to be transported to the network. When you are kind of sending an information from one server to the other, in this layer is where that MAC address is being attached to the frame. The packet, the data unit in this layer is what is referred to as frame. This is where framing is being done in the OSI model. So the next layer is layer 1 of the OSI model. This is what handles the bits, the connections. For example, after this information has gone through the application presentation section, transport network, data link layer, where the MAC addresses are being added. So this physical layer converts this information to zeros and one, which the computers understand. It can convert it to a light signal. It can convert it to an electrical signal. It can convert it to a radio frequency signal. So depending on the medium at which this information are being converted, are being transported across, this layer is in charge of passing it across the Ethernet cables. It's in charge of passing it through the wireless Wi-Fi, or is it going through the fiber optics? Is it going through the USB? This is where this the transmission is being done. The wire transmission is being done in the OSI model. All right, that's all for OSI model. So thank you guys for today. Don't forget to like, subscribe my YouTube channel at Cybernet Security. Thank you guys and see you guys soon.